It was a typical Saturday afternoon at Milltown Grocery, a bustling store known for its fresh produce and friendly staff. Shoppers navigated the aisles, their carts clinking softly as they moved. Among them was 14-year-old Jordan Williams, a bright and polite teenager who had been sent to pick up a few essentials for his family's barbecue. Jordan moved efficiently through the store, ticking items off his list: hamburger buns, ketchup, soda, and chips. Despite the crowd, he felt at ease. His mom always shopped here, and the staff was usually friendly. Reaching the checkout counter, Jordan placed his items neatly on the conveyor belt. He smiled at the cashier, a middle-aged woman named Linda, who was organizing her till. Linda glanced at Jordan, her expression immediately hardening. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her tone sharp. Jordan blinked, caught off guard. "I'm just buying groceries," he replied, keeping his voice polite. Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. "Do you have money for all this?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. Jordan frowned, confused. "Yes, ma'am. I have cash right here," he said, pulling out his wallet. Linda crossed her arms, making no move to start scanning his items. "This isn't the kind of place where you can hang around, you know. Why don't you shop somewhere else?" Jordan's heart sank. He could feel the judgment in her tone, the assumption that he didn't belong. "I'm not hanging around," he said quietly. "I'm just trying to pay for my groceries." Linda snorted. "Well, I don't have time for this. You'll have to go to another register." Jordan glanced at the other lanes, all of which were packed with long lines. "But there's no one here," he said, gesturing to the empty conveyor belt. "Can't you just check me out?" Linda shook her head. "Number go somewhere else." Frustrated and humiliated, Jordan stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The other shoppers nearby had started to notice the exchange, some whispering to each other but none stepping in. As Jordan considered leaving, a familiar voice cut through the tension. "Jordan? What's going on here?" Jordan turned to see his uncle Marcus striding toward him. Marcus was tall, well-dressed, and exuded confidence. But more importantly, he was the store's manager. Marcus approached the checkout counter, his sharp eyes immediately assessing the situation. Jordan, still holding his wallet, looked both embarrassed and relieved. Linda, meanwhile, stood stiffly behind the register, her demeanor suddenly less confident. "Uncle Marcus," Jordan said, his voice tinged with both gratitude and frustration. "I was just trying to pay for these, but she won't check me out." Marcus's jaw tightened as he turned to Linda. "Is that true?" he asked, his tone calm but laced with authority. Linda straightened, her face pale. "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quickly. "I just thought—" "What exactly did you think?" Marcus interrupted, his voice sharper now. "That my nephew didn't belong here? That he couldn't afford his groceries?" Linda stammered. "I didn't know he was your nephew." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And if he wasn't? Would that justify the way you treated him?" The growing tension drew the attention of other shoppers and employees. A small crowd began to form, their curious whispers adding to the charged atmosphere. "I didn't mean anything," Linda repeated, her voice faltering. "I was just trying to do my job." "Your job?" Marcus said, his voice rising slightly. "Your job is to treat every customer with respect, no matter who they are. And from what I'm hearing, you failed. Spectacularly." Linda glanced at the growing crowd, her face flushed with embarrassment. "It was a misunderstanding," she muttered, avoiding Marcus's piercing gaze. "A misunderstanding," Marcus echoed, his tone icy. "You refused service to a paying customer, a child no less, based on nothing but your own assumptions. That's not a misunderstanding. That's unacceptable." Jordan stood silently, watching his uncle defend him with a mix of pride and disbelief. He had never seen Marcus so angry, but he knew his uncle was fighting for him. Marcus turned to Jordan. "Did she say anything else to you?" Jordan hesitated, then nodded. "She told me to go shop somewhere else." The crowd murmured louder, and Marcus's expression hardened. "Linda, we pride ourselves on being a welcoming store," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "If you can't uphold that standard, you don't belong here." Linda's eyes widened. "Are you saying I'm fired?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Marcus replied. "Gather your things and leave." For a moment, Linda seemed as though she might argue, but the weight of the situation and the watching crowd kept her silent. She grabbed her belongings and hurried away, her head down. Marcus turned back to Jordan, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Let's get you checked out," he said softly. The tension in the air began to dissipate as Linda hurried away, leaving Marcus and Jordan at the checkout counter. Marcus motioned for another cashier, a young woman named Sarah, to step in. She nodded quickly, taking her place behind the register with a professional and welcoming demeanor. "Jordan," Marcus said, his tone softening as he turned to his nephew, "I'm sorry you had to go through that. This shouldn't have happened." Jordan nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and lingering frustration. "It's okay, Uncle Marcus. I just didn't know what to do." "You did the right thing by standing your ground," Marcus reassured him, "and I'll make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again." Sarah quickly scanned Jordan's items, giving him a kind smile. "I'm so sorry for what happened," she said quietly. "That's not how we do things here." "Thanks," Jordan replied, feeling a little more at ease. As Sarah bagged the last of the groceries, Marcus addressed the small crowd that had gathered. "Everyone, I want to apologize for the scene you just witnessed," he said, his voice firm but calm. "This store does not tolerate discrimination in any form. If you ever experience or witness behavior like this, please bring it to my attention immediately." The onlookers nodded in agreement, a few offering murmurs of support. The atmosphere began to shift from tense to hopeful as Marcus's words sunk in. Back at home, Jordan recounted the incident to his parents. His mother, Tanya, was visibly upset, while his father, Marcus's brother, remained silent but stern. "Jordan," Tanya said, her voice tinged with anger and sadness, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. You shouldn't have to deal with things like this, especially at your age." "It's okay, Mom," Jordan said, though his voice was quiet. "Uncle Marcus handled it." "And I'm glad he did," Tanya replied, glancing at her husband. "But this just shows we have more work to do." James, Jordan's father, nodded. "You handled yourself well today, son," he said. "And Marcus set a good example of how to address situations like this. But it's important for you to know that standing up for yourself is just as important as knowing when to ask for help." Jordan nodded, his confidence slowly returning. "Thanks, Dad. I just didn't want to make things worse." "You didn't," Marcus said, stepping into the room. "You handled yourself with dignity, and that's what matters most." Jordan smiled, feeling the support of his family around him. "Thanks, Uncle Marcus. I'm glad you were there." "Always," Marcus said firmly, "and don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." The following week at Milltown Grocery, the atmosphere was noticeably different. Marcus, true to his word, had taken swift action to ensure the store became a more inclusive and welcoming environment. He implemented mandatory diversity and sensitivity training for all employees, starting with a company-wide meeting in the store's break room. "Thank you all for being here," Marcus began, standing at the front of the room. His commanding presence silenced the chatter as employees turned their attention to him. "I want to address what happened last week and make it clear that incidents of discrimination will not be tolerated at Milltown Grocery." The employees nodded, many of them looking solemn. Some had witnessed the confrontation between Linda and Jordan, while others had only heard about it. "We're not just a store," Marcus continued. "We're part of this community. And it's our responsibility to treat everyone who walks through those doors with respect and dignity." He gestured toward a screen displaying a slideshow of the store's values, emphasizing diversity and inclusion. "Starting today, we're introducing new training programs to make sure every employee understands what it means to provide equal service to all customers. This isn't just about policies, it's about doing the right thing." After the meeting, many employees approached Marcus to express their support. Sarah, the cashier who had stepped in to assist Jordan, was among them. "Thank you for addressing this, Mr. Carter," she said. "It means a lot to all of us." Marcus nodded. "It's not just about addressing it, Sarah. It's about preventing it from happening again." Later that day, Jordan and his parents visited the store. Tanya wanted to personally thank Marcus for standing up for their son, and Jordan was eager to see the changes his uncle had promised. "Uncle Marcus," Jordan called out as they entered the store. Marcus greeted them with a warm smile and a quick hug for his nephew. "Jordan, how are you doing, buddy?" "I'm good," Jordan replied, his confidence noticeably higher than it had been the previous week. "I just wanted to say thanks again for what you did." "You don't need to thank me," Marcus said. "I'm just glad I was there to help. But you standing up for yourself, that's what matters most." Tanya smiled, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. "We're proud of how you handled yourself, Jordan. And Marcus, we're so grateful for everything you've done, not just for Jordan, but for the entire community." "It's the least I could do," Marcus replied. "This store belongs to everyone, and I want to make sure everyone feels welcome here." As they walked through the store, Jordan noticed the positive changes. Employees greeted customers warmly, and there was a new sign near the entrance that read, "At Milltown Grocery, everyone is welcome." For the first time since the incident, Jordan felt a sense of peace. The store that had once been a place of hurt now felt like a place of hope. Over the following weeks, the ripple effects of Marcus's actions spread far beyond the store's walls. Customers noticed the changes, not just in the policies, but in the attitudes of the staff. The environment at Milltown Grocery had shifted to one of inclusivity and respect, setting an example for other businesses in the area. One Saturday morning, Jordan and his family attended a local community event at the park. Among the activities was a discussion panel on promoting diversity and equity in local businesses. Marcus was one of the featured speakers, alongside other leaders in the community. Jordan sat proudly in the front row with his parents, watching as his uncle took the stage. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus began, his voice steady and confident. "I want to start by saying that what happened at Milltown Grocery wasn't just a wake-up call for our store. It was a wake-up call for me as a leader." He glanced at the audience, his gaze firm yet encouraging. "We all have a responsibility to challenge discrimination wherever we see it. It's not enough to say we're inclusive. We have to show it through our actions, policies, and the way we treat each other every single day." The crowd nodded in agreement, many clapping softly. Marcus continued, sharing the changes implemented at Milltown Grocery and encouraging other business owners to follow suit. "I've learned that leadership isn't just about running a business," he said. "It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. That's how we build stronger communities." After the panel, several people approached Marcus to thank him for his words. Jordan watched with admiration, his chest swelling with pride. "Your uncle's pretty awesome," one of Jordan's friends said, nudging him with a grin. "Yeah, he is," Jordan replied, smiling. Later, as they walked home, Jordan turned to Marcus. "Uncle Marcus, do you think what you did will really make a difference?" Marcus stopped and looked at his nephew. "I think it already has," he said. "But the real difference comes when people like you carry the message forward. You have the power to inspire change, Jordan, just by standing up for what's right." Jordan nodded, his confidence solidified by his uncle's words. "I'll remember that." Months later, Milltown Grocery was thriving, with record customer satisfaction and a reputation as one of the most welcoming stores in the area. Marcus's leadership had set a new standard, not just for his business, but for the entire community. As for Jordan, he carried the lessons he had learned with him, knowing that one person's actions could spark meaningful change. And every time he visited the store, he couldn't help but smile at the sign near the entrance. "At Milltown Grocery, everyone is welcome."